There is a lot more to backpacking Saguaro National Park than just big cactus. In this video, I'll show you what to expect and help you choose your route. Saguaro National Park East Unit, also known as the Rincons, is on the east side of Tucson, Arizona. Don't confuse it with the west unit of the park in the Tucson Mountains on the other side of Tucson. The Rincon Mountain District of Saguaro National Park East is a fabulous place for backpacking with a half-dozen trailheads, but they all take you to Manning Camp, the crown jewel of the park near its summit. Typical for national parks, you need a backcountry permit for overnight camping. You can get your permit in advance by mail, but I always just stop in at the visitor center off of Old Spanish Trail when it opens at 9 a.m. before setting out on my hike. I've never had a problem getting a same-day permit, but the campsites along the Arizona National Scenic Trail are getting busier during the thru hiking seasons in spring and fall. Stop for a few moments and enjoy the first of many great views out the picture window at the visitor center. The first trail we'll look at is my favorite, the TANQUE Ridge Trail, which starts near the JAVALINA picnic area, just a short drive through the park from where you pick up your permit. This is a paved road with secure parking. There is a campsite just 7 miles up the trail to Juniper Basin. Along this hike, you'll be rewarded with expansive views to the west of Tucson, the Tucson Mountains, and the Santa Rita Sky Islands to the south. Like most campgrounds at Saguaro, Juniper Basin has 3 campsites, each with a fire ring, bear box, and 1 toilet. It's located at about 6,000 feet. The campsite has a good stand of mature trees, which are great for hanging a hammock like I like to sleep in. It's an additional 8.7 miles up to Manning Camp from Juniper Basin. Make sure you stop and enjoy the views from TANQUE Peak. It's an easy 2.5 miles to Cowhead Saddle, but after that it's a steady climb up to Manning. As you stop and catch your breath, look for views to the north of the Santa Catalina Mountains. Our next route begins at the Douglas Springs Trailhead, a few miles north of the visitor center, which is popular with equestrians. The trailhead is at 2,750 feet of elevation, and it's a 6-mile hike to Douglas Spring Campground. The Douglas Spring Trailhead has easy access, no permit required to park, and plenty of spaces. The Douglas Spring Campground is a 6-mile hike with about 1,000 feet of elevation gain. It is rarely used, as it is the lowest altitude campsite in the park, and water is only sporadically available, typically in spring with snowmelt runoff. The trail is cut into solid granite with some interesting steps blasted out of the stone. There are an uncountable number of steps along the trail, which keep erosion down but can be tough on the knees. If you hike the trail in April, as I did, you'll be rewarded with fields of fairy duster wildflowers. The ocotillo were ubiquitous and in brilliant bloom. Watch for hummingbirds, which are attracted to the fiery red blooms. Finding water can be a challenge in the Rincons. Check with the park rangers for current conditions. The spring at Manning is perennial, and there was actually abundant water at Douglas Spring when I hiked it.
This is a tank, TANQUE in Spanish, that basically is a spot in the rocks where the water collects.
After the campground, it's a 2.5-mile trek up 1,400 feet to Cowhead Saddle. When I passed through, the brush was overgrown, so long sleeves and pants are advisable even in hot weather. After Cowhead Saddle, it's the same hike as from Juniper Basin. Next up is the Italian Spring Trail, part of the Arizona National Scenic Trail that stretches from the Mexico to the Utah border. It's about a 12-mile trek to Manning, with no formal campsites along the way, but there is an informal site just before entering the park boundary. The Italian Spring Trail has beautiful rock formations, though you don't get real close to them. When I hiked it, I came across some unique pincushion cacti. Next, we'll cover the eastern trailheads, Turkey and Miller Creek. They are blessed with a short hike up to the pines, but the downside is they are a long drive on a dirt road from Tucson. Turkey Creek is the less used of the two, mostly as a return segment of a loop starting at Miller Creek. The more accessible or lower Turkey Creek trailhead is just off the creek and has shady parking under a magnificent stand of sycamore trees with tons of parking. If you have a high clearance four-wheel drive vehicle and you don't mind some steep climbs, you can cut off a couple miles of hiking and about 400 feet of elevation by driving to the official trailhead. I did this hike with a Tucson backpacking meetup group, and we elected to park at the lower trailhead. Here's the crew at the upper trailhead wishing we were done. It's just under 9 miles to Manning from the official or upper trailhead, but you can cut off about 2 miles by camping at Spud Rock Spring, a misnomer because there hasn't been water there for years. The view here up trail is typical high desert with lots of juniper. One of the interesting finds along Turkey Creek are these seashell fossils embedded in the rocks. The penstemon were in full bloom when we did the hike in early April. The Miller Creek Trail is popular because it's only a 4.5-mile hike up to the Ponderosa Pines and another half-mile downhill saunter to the Happy Valley Campground. It's about a 2,000-foot ascent from the trailhead, but it's not too steep. The Happy Valley Campground is set in the piney woods and is seldom used, but it's a great base camp to summit Rincon Peak from. There's sporadic water just south of the campground, but bring a filter as it's pretty murky. I love the scenic hike along Heartbreak Ridge to Manning. Lots of pine trees and pine cones. About 2 miles up Heartbreak Ridge from Happy Valley is the Old Lookout, a short walk up a spur trail. The views of Rincon Peak from the lookout are unequaled. A great place to take a break and have some fun. The last trail up is the Hope Camp or Quilter Trail from the LOMA ALTA trailhead. This trailhead has very easy access, good parking, and the Quilter Trail has some of the nicest stands of saguaro cacti in the park. The trailhead is at the end of Camino Loma Alta and is clearly marked. After parking your car, proceed to the gate, making sure to close it behind you.
Yes, this is why they call it Saguaro National Park. And there's Mica Mountain and Rincon Peak off in the distance.
Once you head north on the Quilter Trail from the Hope Camp Trail Junction, you'll begin to climb and the views of the Santa Rita Mountains will really open up. Keep your eyes peeled for the small rainbow cacti along the trail, a species not commonly seen in the Tucson area. Your first night's destination will likely be the Grass Shack Campground at 5,300 feet of elevation. Keep your eyes peeled for horses along this trail, as this is a popular equestrian route. There is normally a trickle of a stream that runs by the campsite, though it can go dry in summer. If you walk upstream a bit, there are typically some larger pools. Now let's have a look at Manning Camp itself, a very worthwhile destination located at about 8,000 feet. There is a substantial ranger station at the camp, which is manned only during peak season. There are 6 campsites at Manning. My favorite is number 1, shown here. It has nice views, lots of ponderosa pines for hanging my hammock, and easy access to water. Speaking of water, the source here is perennial, and there is a marked trail that leads to a pool below the spring where you can fill up. The camp is near the base of Mica Mountain, aptly named because if you look carefully you can find some nice specimens of this interesting mineral. Look for creatures that are attracted to the water like this desert horned lizard. The Devil's Punch Bowl is an interesting rock formation and water feature worth taking the short hike from the campsite. Be aware that the weather at Manning can be a lot different than it is in Tucson, such as this snowstorm that we encountered in April. I didn't manage to get footage of them, but the morning after the storm we were visited by a flock of wild turkeys at sunrise. Let's summarize your route and trailhead choices. TANQUE Ridge has arguably the best vistas, secure parking, and is easily accessible with passenger cars, but you do need a National Park Pass to get to it because it's inside the park. Douglas Spring starts out at a lower altitude, making it warmer, but the trailhead has had reports of car break-ins. Italian Spring is a shorter route, but has no intermediate campground and requires a modest drive on a dirt road. Miller and Turkey Creek both require a long drive from Tucson with an extensive dirt road with stream crossings in wet weather. Miller Creek has the best access to Rincon Peak if you have summit plans. Turkey Creek has a long approach trail if you park at the lower trailhead. Hiking up Miller and down Turkey Creeks are the best way of doing a loop in the park. The QUILTER Hope Trail has the best stands of saguaros and nice southern vistas. You'll have to decide which route hits your hot buttons, but it's nice to have options. Thanks for watching. If you found this video useful, please click like or subscribe to my channel below.